Hi guys, this is Wim from Belgium. You know, after listening to several theories about the flat earth and the spherical theory, I thought, well, they are both right, but how can we combine them? And then one day I had an idea, a possible solution. I'm not saying it's true or not true, but it's a possible solution. It's a very simple one, but at the same time very, very scary. Listen up. Okay, we are going to start with the spherical theory. So, it's simple. We take a ball and we call it Earth. We surround this ball with another ball and we call it the plasma belt. Then we take the sun and we let it shine on the Earth. The Earth is giving a reflection on the plasma belt. And on the plasma belt, we see our own reflection. The reflection is, surprise, the moon. What do you mean the moon is the reflection of Earth? What do you mean? Where are all the rivers and the forests? Yeah, but let's suggest that Earth is 1,000 times bigger than we are told. Then the moon is a reflection of a gigantic big Earth. So, let's move over to the flat Earth. It's simple. We take the flat Earth and we zoom in into the moon. And then we see all those circles, the so-called asteroids impacts. Well, let's suggest that one of those asteroid impacts is a flat Earth. That would mean that we are surrounded by other biosystems. So, if this theory is correct, now we understand why Antarctica, the so-called Antarctica, the snow wall, is being militarized. We are afraid of other biosystems attacking us. It's like in the series Game of Thrones, where there's a gigantic ice wall protecting us from invading species. So, when you hear another story about aliens coming from other star systems, well, maybe they won't be coming from other star systems. They might be coming from planet Earth. Maybe on one system you have the humanoid species being dominant. Maybe on the other biosystem you have the reptoid or the insectoids being the dominant species. And when you hear the story of Jules Verne, when people are going to the middle of Earth and they discover a totally new world, maybe there are tunnels here on Earth where you can reach other biosystems, and instead of going to the center of Earth, you are going to another biosystem. So, why would they not be telling us this all? Well, maybe the elites are thinking, well, our population is not ready for this information. They will panic when they know that we're not alone on this planet. Well, for myself, I would rather hear the truth than being lied to all the time. So guys, what do you think? You know, what I'm saying here is not the absolute truth. It's a suggestion. It's a good idea, it's creative, so let me know what you think. If you think it's pure madness, no problem, I can live with that. But I think there's some good ideas in it. What do you think? Hello everybody. For those who didn't see the first part, I'm giving you a 30-second review of part 1. Here it comes. We are going to start with the spherical theory. So, it's simple. We take a ball and we call it Earth. We surround this ball with another ball and we call it the plasma belt. Then we take the sun and we let it shine on the Earth. The Earth is giving a reflection on the plasma belt. And on the plasma belt, we see our own reflection. The reflection is, surprise, the moon. What do you mean the moon is the reflection of Earth? What do you mean? Where are all the rivers and the forests? Yeah, but let's suggest that Earth is 1,000 times bigger than we are told. Then the moon is a reflection of a gigantic big Earth. So, let's move over to the flat Earth. It's simple. We take the flat Earth and we zoom in into the moon. And then we see all those circles, the so-called asteroids impacts. Well, let's suggest that one of those asteroid impacts is a flat Earth. That would mean that we are surrounded by other biosystems. Here is part 2. I would suggest fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a heavy ride. Okay, people will say, well, this theory, it's not real. What are you going to do with a solar eclipse? Okay, I will explain solar eclipse to you. Watch this. Before we go any further, I would like to remind you of the theory of Plato, the allegory of the cave. In fact, we think we see something, but we really see shadows of the real world. So, first we take the sun, then we take the earth. We create the plasma belt. On the plasma belt, we see the reflection of the sun. On the plasma belt, we see the reflection of Earth. The reflection of the sun is shining on the Earth. So everybody is thinking that the sun is shining on us, but in reality, it's the reflection of the sun that is shining on us. So, what is a solar eclipse? A solar eclipse is the reflection of the Earth. The so-called moon is blocking the reflection of the sun. If Obama would be standing before the mirror and his mirror image would block the sun behind him, and he thought that the guy in the mirror was someone else, he would say, hey, this guy is taking away my light. Please move aside. But in reality, it would be himself, his mirror image, that is blocking the light. Now, I will take you one step further. It's even more crazy. Listen to this. Okay, but now we have one giant problem. One side of the Earth has been lit by the reflection of the sun, but the other side is dark. How is that possible if the sun is shining there? And then I remembered from our good friends, the Nazis, they had a cult of the Schwarze Sonne, the black sun. So I thought, maybe our sun is black. That was a gigantic idea, and I will explain it to you. Well, the old theory is, you have darkness and the light is shining in the darkness. What if this theory was wrong? Let's suggest that there is black light and white light. And white light would be the inversion, the reflection of black light. So if you have a black sun shining and it mirrors in the plasma, it could become white light. So white light is the reflection of the black light in the plasma belt. So when you are standing outside at night, the black light is shining on you. I know it sounds crazy, but let's assume that water is reflecting black light and is turning it into white light. Plasma is a form of water. So, if the black light is shining at night on the earth, the black light will be reflected by the water on the earth, and it will become white light. That white light will reflect on the plasma belt. So if you look in the sky and you see all those white dots, that could be all water worlds on a gigantic globe. So the stars would be a map of the Earth reflected on the plasma belt. So, and what star would be the Earth? Well, it's quite simple. There is only one star that is not moving. That is the polar star, Polaris. So when you see a time lapse of the stars turning, that means that the Earth is turning. And at the center stands Polaris. So I looked on the internet for a photo of Polaris, and I discovered one, the best possible resolution. So I took Polaris. I made it a little bit darker, and then I took the flat Earth. Oh my God. This is not true. Yes, I guess it is true. We are Polaris. We are the reflection. Polaris is the reflection of Earth. If we could take a gigantic telescope, we could see ourselves mirrored on the plasma belt. So I really don't know if you're still sitting in your chair. You might be lying on the floor, laughing or crying, I don't know. Maybe you say, this guy is nuts. Okay, no problem. But I'm afraid I might be right. Sleep well, my friends. Hello. In this video, I will prove that the moon is a reflection of Earth. And secondly, we live on a gigantic ball. I came to this conclusion by assuming Earth is enclosed in a big mirror plasma ball. Give it a thought. Let's create a plasma ball. Put Mr. X into it. Mr. X is looking at himself. Let's spin Mr. X. This is what he is seeing. Put a light source on Mr. X. Now let's speed up the moon and put it next to Mr. X. But I have a problem now. I had to speed up the moon. Here are the moon phases for 1 month. And here for a year. Conclusion. The light needs 30 days to turn around the moon. And it takes only 24 hours to turn around Mr. X. If the moon is the reflection of Mr. X, how come the difference? Let's ask Mr. Einstein. It's all about the time dilation theory. Give me a minute to explain it to you. You have a light clock with 2 mirrors in the opposite direction and the light beam bouncing between the mirrors. So you take 2 light clocks. One light clock is standing on the Earth. The second one you put on a spaceship. When the spaceship starts flying, the light beam will have to cross the distance the spaceship is flying. Therefore, it will take longer for the light beam to go from one mirror to the other. The faster the spaceship goes, the longer it will take, and therefore time will slow down in comparison with the clock on the ground. Here you see a computer image. The red ball is going faster, but time is slowing down. Here we see Mr. X turning, and we see his mirror image turning faster because it is on the outside of the circle, and Mr. X is on the inside. On the left, we see Mr. X experiencing real time. On the right side, we see the mirror image slowing down due to time dilation. Mr. X sees himself in slow motion. Left, the Earth, right, the Moon. If the reflection of Earth is 30 times slower than Earth itself, that means if Earth is 5 billion years old, we are looking at the image of Earth being 170 million years old. Has life already started? So, if you take a telescope and you look at the moon, you probably won't see any humans running around. Now I will prove to you that we are living on a greater ball. What if Mr. X would wonder, hey, I'm always seeing the front of my face. How would the back of my head look like? Is it possible to see it? I would say yes, but we have to play a trick here. I will put a fly on the back of Mr. X, his head. What would the fly be seeing? It would be seeing the same light movements, but from the back. So let's take the little ball theory. Let's take the United States. Let's presume that the USA is the front side of Mr. X. Then we take on the opposite side of Earth, we have Europe, and we would make that the fly side. So, what would the United States see as their reflection? They would see this. And what would Europe see as their reflection? They would see this. They would be seeing different moons. But everybody is seeing the same moon. Therefore, we must be all on the same side. But now we face an even bigger problem, because if the moon is our reflection and we are all at the same side, we are all at the same moment in darkness or in daytime. To understand this, we have to put the sun into the equation. What is the sun? Well, for this I'll make a hypothesis. You don't have to agree, but it really makes no difference for the rest of the theory. So, you have the plasma ball being heated up by an outside source. The ball is heating up and forming a blister, a ball with heated plasma, boiling and turning around and shooting solar flares. So, Mr. X is sitting in the plasma ball, spinning around, and he will see the sun. The first time he will look straight into the sun. This will result in this image. Mr. X cannot see his mirror image because he is looking straight into the sun. But Mr. X will see the sun a second time. The moment when he is with his back at the sun, he will see the reflection of the sun in the plasma belt. So Mr. X will see this image. So, if I make an animation of this, this is the result. Now, if Mr. X thinks he is looking at the moon, he thinks, look, the sun is turning around the moon, or the moon is turning around the sun. Or if Mr. X realizes he is looking at his mirror image, he thinks, look, the sun is turning around me. Wrong again. Now I will analyze this image. I did a little experiment with real footage. So I have a spotlight. I have Mr. X cut out and I have a mirror. When you are filming from the standpoint of Mr. X, your reflection is in total blackness due to the backlight. But when you are looking on the front, the face actually is receiving light. When I'm using a bowl, you can see it better. Here the reflection of the light, the reflection of the bowl itself. So you see the bowl is receiving light from the reflection from the mirror. So what I'm trying to say here is the reflection of Mr. X is in darkness, but Mr. X himself is not in darkness. So when you see the reflection of Earth becoming black, that is because of the backlight. This does not mean there is no light shining on Earth, aka the moon. So Mr. X is receiving light 2 times. Once from the front when he looks into the light, and the second time when the light is reflecting in the plasma ball. This results in this model. Watch the little crater moving around. So why did I put a crater in the ball? I was observing the moon's surface and I thought, meteorite impacts? No way. Now, that's more like it. But then you need air. Another reason to reject the idea that the moon is a rock in space. So let's take one air bubble and compare that with the moon craters. So let's take that air bubble again, replace it with the flat Earth map, put some water into it. You see that the North Pole is the eye of the vortex. Put that on a bigger bowl. And then you see low tide and high tide. So now we end up with this. We have a bigger Earth, a small crater, and 2 suns. But we still have a problem. If you watch carefully, you see that one part of the crater is in constant darkness. So let's go back to the moon. Here you see the images of the moon, but the moon is stabilized. Here you see the unstabilized movie. You can see that the Earth is wobbling. It's going up and down, up and down. So let's go back to Mr. X. Mr. X is spinning around, but he is also going up and down. The sun is below him, above him, below him, above him. Now you see the sun is above the crater. The top side of the crater is dark. Now the sun is below the crater and the low side of the crater is in darkness. Here you see the total image. Let's presume a drone is hovering above the crater. It would be seeing this. Now look at the upper side of the crater. Darkness, light. Now the downside, light, dark. So one part of our biosphere is receiving daylight from the reflected sun, and the other part of the biosphere is receiving daylight from the real sun. So, what would be winter and summer? I think the moon is making 3 movements: spinning, wobbling, and I think the third movement is slightly moving from its position. To be absolutely sure, you have to study the moon for 34 years to have 1 year in real time. Here I move Earth closer to the sun on one side, and now on the other side. Winter on one side, summer on the other, and vice versa. Here is the end animation. Instead of wobbling the Earth, I had a higher light and a lower light. That would give the same effect. Now we have the final question. Where exactly on the moon is the Earth situated? To examine this, I have taken one movement of the moon and I have lit up the dark side, so I can check out the movement. Now I can draw 2 lines wherein the Earth is moving. The bottom and the top. Watch the black spot on the right. Now I can put a red line between the blue lines, so that is the axis on which the craters are moving from dark to light. Only on this axis you have craters with the day and night of 12 hours. So on the left you see the white spot. That is crater Copernicus. On the right side you see a black spot. That is called Mare Crisium. So let's take Google Maps and zoom in. On the left you see crater Copernicus, and on the right Mare Crisium. So you have to draw an axis between those two. Then we will zoom in and look for planets. Oops, what is that? Exactly on the place. I was looking for some craters. That could be planet Earth. You see this. What is it? At first I was thinking, well, it's a cover-up. But now, when I looked at it for the second time, I see that they are actually changing the shadows. You see, shadow on the right, shadow on the left, shadow on the right. Look at the smaller ones there. Are we living in a big hole or a small hole? I'm not sure. Time will tell. That's it. Now you can reject the idea of the plasma ball, or you can accept it. If you accept it, you will wake up on a bigger Earth. If you reject it, you can keep on dreaming of space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the New World Order Enterprise. Its continuing mission to invent new worlds, to destroy our lives and our civilization, to sell more lies than anyone has done before. In my previous video, I debunked the moon being a rock. Now I will debunk stars and planets being rocks. Let's begin with this image. On the foreground you see planet Earth, and on the background a freeze frame. Freeze frame of a night sky turning on its axis. Center, right and left view. Compare that with a photograph of a ball in the mirror. Of course, because we are situated on the ball, we will only see a part of the reflection. So we have a double reflection. The moon is the total image, and the stars are a closer, detailed reflection. So if I'm right, the star map will fit exactly on the moon map, thus they are both the reflection of Earth. So when I looked at the star map, I decided to take Orion as my anchor point. And the main reason is the 2 times 3 points. So I took a plastic foil and I copied the silhouette on it. After looking a few days, I found a match. I'll show you where. It was exactly where I suspected it, in the tape. There it is. The only problem was that the 2 times 3 points were fitting, but the 4 corners were slightly deviating. That might be due to the reflection on the plasma ball. Of course, I have a starting point now, but I need some more proof. But what I did notice, to my surprise, is that Orion was close to the Milky Way, and the place of my Orion was near a ridge. So I suspected that the reflection of the ridge is actually the Milky Way. So let's look again at the pictures of the freeze frame of the nighttime sky and think of it as a reflection of Earth, aka the moon, with a giant rock formation on the side, from bottom to top. So, from this point, I will search further for some more clues. Near the star system of Orion, you have the star system of Taurus. Well, you have a lot of craters there, but which one to choose? That's difficult to tell. But then I saw this picture, the sign of Taurus, and in the horns you have the Crab Nebula. And I had noticed on the surface of the moon a very strange anomaly, very strange form. It almost looked like a crab. So I found these Hollywood scientific pictures too good to be true. So I decided to quit the Hollywood science fiction scene and look for some amateur images. These images aren't tampered with. So I found this one, and I put the 2 images next to each other. Play a little bit with the levels in Photoshop, and you get this result. So next you have Orion, Taurus and the Crab Nebula, and on the right of Taurus you have the Pleiades. So the distance between Orion, Taurus and the Pleiades is approximately the same, so it was fairly easy to find it. So I take a close-up of it and put a photograph of an amateur next to it. So we got Orion, the Crab Nebula and the Pleiades. So what's next? Well, on the left there you have Saturn. That would be interesting to find a planet. So let's move up from the Pleiades. Well, that looks like an interesting crater. I can almost see Saturn from the top. But how on earth could this reflect in this form? Stuck again. So at that point I decided to make a 3D model. It's a crater in a crater and at the bottom a bowl. Let me show you the result. Okay, let's put some light in it. I would say, Eureka! Here is your planet. The bottom bowl is forming a light bowl. And the two craters are forming the rings round Saturn. I don't know about you, but that really knocks me off my chair. So let's move on. Next in line would be Sirius, a very important star, easy to find. So if you take the 3 little stars of Orion, approximately 5 times to the left you find Sirius. Sirius was a very important star for the Egyptians. By observing Sirius, they could predict the movements of the Nile. So, let's take the 3 little stars and move to the left. Damn! Or maybe it's another one, a bit deeper. This one is called Sulpicius Gallus M. Or this one is even bigger. Let's go back to the small one. So I found this picture of Sirius. Play a little bit with the levels, so you get this. So I cut up the continents and I played a little bit. Still no proof, of course, but we're getting close. But then I got a lucky break again. I found this picture. Especially the 2 at the bottom. This is mind-blowing. Take a look at the entrance and the 2 sidebars. The 2 notches at the side and the center point. The same for here. The entrance, the core point and the 2 notches at the side. So now I can say that Sulpicius Gallus M is Sirius and probably our biosphere. You can also see some smaller craters that might be Sirius A, B and C. You can also see there is a passage. Antarctica is the doorway to the bigger Earth. I also have to admit I made a mistake in my previous videos. I stated that Polaris was planet Earth, so I have to take that back, sorry. So now I know where Sirius is, I can start making triangles. The left star of the Orion constellation is called Betelgeuse. Here you see a picture. So when you make a triangle with Betelgeuse and Sirius, you get Procyon. So you have the gateway, the center and the sidebar. So now we have Procyon, we can find Mars. Let's zoom in. Here is the close-up and with a photograph next to it. You can see the polar cap. Observe the snake-like line lying next to Mars. I think that's responsible for the snake-like shadow on the bow. Here you have the Barnard Nebula. Here we have Sirius and the Seagull Nebula. So, what are galaxies? When you look closely, it's like a moon crater seen from the side. If you flip this one over, you would have a galaxy. And why spiraling? That's because of the movement of Earth. So, that's as far as I got. I don't know about you, but I have enough evidence to believe that we're on a bigger ball. Of course, there will always be people who will deny it. If we were in the Middle Ages, I would be on the fire stack now, burning alive. When I see the reactions on my previous video, I think we're in deep trouble. Thanks for watching. Welcome to my 5th video. Today I will show you the exact location of Atlantis. All the present theories try to locate Atlantis on the little ball. Antarctica is Atlantis, it's in the Atlantic Ocean, or the latest theory, it is in Spain, and so on. They try to portray it as a big city. But when you put Atlantis on the bigger Earth, it all becomes so simple and obvious. For me, it's yet another puzzle piece falling on its place. For the people who think, what the hell is he talking about, the bigger Earth? You have to watch my previous videos. Links are above. There I state we are living on a bigger Earth. So let's take a look at Atlantis. The description of Plato. How could we recreate that image? Well, you would have a crater in a crater in a crater. But hey, where did I hear that story before? Exactly. Remember in my previous video I made a 3D object in which I simulated light. That gave the reflection of Saturn. So let's go back to Saturn on the moon map called Linné. Let's fill the dark shadows with water. 1 ring, 2, 3. Let's compare that with Atlantis. 3 rings of water, 3 rings of water. So, the conclusion is Saturn is Atlantis. But now a little bell starts ringing. I'm starting to realize why all the occult societies are obsessed with Saturn. Now, the rest of the story is getting very simple. Let's go back to the moon map. You have 2 important players here. You have moon crater Linné with the star name Saturn and the earth name Atlantis. And you have crater Sulpicius Gallus M, star name Sirius, our biosphere Earth. Thirdly, you have a big plain called Mare Serenitatis, calm sea. I guess it wasn't that calm. So, watch the location of Atlantis and of biosphere Earth. Atlantis is in the middle of the sea. Biosphere Earth is on the shores of a ridge. Now let's presume there is a tsunami on the bigger Earth, and the whole crater of Atlantis was flooded. That would have been an enormous disaster with earthquakes, and their whole biosphere would have been swallowed by the water. Part of the population could escape by boat and managed to save their family and some livestock. Was it Noah or Gilgamesh? One boat, several boats, we don't know. But part of the Atlanteans managed to escape. So Noah started sailing and managed to reach the shore. Here you see a simulation on the moon map. It must have been an enormous trip. I estimate it to be 2 million kilometers. Finally, land. Here you see an aerial view of their landing place, our crater. Finally, they landed their boat on Mount Ararat, a mountain near crater Earth. Once the water returned to a lower level, the Atlanteans and their family got out of their boat. From there, they started walking. That would have been 40,000 kilometers. With a family and livestock, that could have taken 40 years. 40 years in the desert? Where did we hear that story before? Look at the position of crater Earth. It is very close to the shore. On the side of crater Earth, you see an opening that is lower than the rest. Once in a while, when water on the bigger planet is rising, water could leak into our crater. Maybe at a certain moment in time, a huge piece of ice slipped into the crater and caused an enormous destruction, the so-called ice meteorite. That meteorite was responsible for the rising of sea levels, and I think it sealed off the gateway to the bigger Earth. Earlier, people could enter our crater on foot. Now they need a boat. Slowly, this information of the gateway got lost, to the point where we are now. And now, at the present time, how are you going to explain water levels rising if you don't want to tell the people about the bigger Earth? Well, you invent climate change and you tell people the ice of Antarctica is melting because of fossil fuels. No, I think it's the water of Mare Serenitatis that is leaking into our crater. So, what's next? The Atlanteans enter the Promised Land and discover the Garden of Eden. It must have been a beautiful world. There must have been hominid races in the biosphere. I think that because of their higher technology, they must have been seen as the gods. Maybe some of the gods had difficulty breathing because of the different mixture of oxygen and needed some kind of respirator. Were they seen as bird gods because of that apparatus? Another question would be, were there giants? Of course, this is blasphemy for mainstream science. Was Homo sapiens around? I don't know. I'll make another improvisation here. It's purely speculative. Don't take it for granted. Here I go. The gods of Atlantis forbid their people to have sex with the hominids. But a few fallen angels disobeyed, and the crossbreed of Atlanteans and hominids was born, Homo sapiens. Because of that, Adam and Eve were cast out of paradise, the Garden of Eden. They had to leave Greater Earth. So I would guess Adam was an Atlantean and Eve a hominid. So, if you are looking for the missing link in the evolutionary story, you won't find it. Bye bye, Darwin. This is blasphemy. So the gods started rebuilding their world and built the megalithic structures. Maybe with some advanced technology, because we still don't understand how they cut those gigantic stones. This technology might have been put in a special protected box. Later, when the gods died out, or they left again, there was a fight over the left behind technology of the gods, with the whole story about the Ark of the Covenant. This story, of course, is so absurd and out of the blue that the Freemasons decided to build a replica. Look at the menorah in front of the Ark. Another reminder of the rings of Atlantis. The Atlanteans probably had some advanced knowledge. I suspect they had explored and mapped out the complete bigger Earth. I deduce that from the several star maps that were built in our crater, like the Golan Heights, Stonehenge, the pyramids, and so many more. Now I will show you some knowledge hidden in the monuments. Okay, let's zoom in on Stonehenge, what is left of it. Okay, let's move to the right, and there you see in the soil, I don't know if anyone has seen this before, you can see clearly the sign of Orion. Move to the right, you see a bull's head, Taurus. Move to the right, and there you see the 7 stars of Pleiades. Let's zoom out, move to the left, and then there you see Saturn, aka Atlantis. Well, if you wonder why those trees are still standing there, I think underneath you would find the rings of Atlantis. So, let's summarize. If you go from right to left, you have first the Pleiades, next you have Taurus, and then you have Orion. So, what would Stonehenge be then? Let's take the star map. On the right you see Pleiades, next Taurus, Orion, so on the left you have Sirius. That means that Stonehenge is Sirius. Crater Earth. So if that is true, let's compare Stonehenge with Sulpicius Gallus M and with a photograph of Sirius. Sadly, there is not much left of Stonehenge, but luckily there's still an old drawing. Let's take a look at it. Well, I would say that's bingo. Let's compare. Here you see the circle in the center, the photograph, the stones and Stonehenge. Then you see the 2 notches on the photograph of Sirius and the 2 circles on Stonehenge. And now the most important, the gateway on Sulpicius Gallus M, photograph of Sirius, and here on Stonehenge you see the gateway. This is the information our ancestors have put into the monuments. Now you understand why they are destroying these buildings. Exactly on the spot of the gateway they have built a road. Okay, let's have another example of the star map. I found a very strange coincidence when I compared Mars with Silbury Hill. Okay, let's zoom in. Watch the exact same proportion. Let's flip it. One is a crater, the other is a mountain. And look at the black snake-like line at the bottom of the building. Well, that looks like the same to me. And again, the same tactics. Let's put a road on the monument. I think our ancestors have been building miniatures of certain places of the bigger Earth. Okay, let's go to Egypt now, to the pyramids. Everybody probably knows the link between the 3 Orion stars and the pyramids. But did you know that people think that the Sphinx might not be a lion, but a dog? Anubis? Okay, let's look at the star constellations. You have Orion, and next to it you have Canis Major, the big dog. So if you look at the star constellation, you see that Sirius is at the chest of the dog. Now let's assume that the Sphinx is a dog, then there must be something on the chest of the Sphinx. Here you see there is an opening on the head of the Sphinx. And supposedly a guy named George A. Reisner discovered empty rooms in the Sphinx. Well, that wouldn't surprise me. And it wouldn't surprise me either if they were hiding this from us. Okay, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Conclusion: Atlantis is Saturn. And that is the reason all the occult science has a connection with Saturn. I would like to end with the words of thought from the Emerald Tablet. See you next time. So, you want the truth about Antarctica? Fasten your seatbelts, here it comes. Let's zoom in on the moon. The moon is the reflection of Earth. Not the little ball you have been told, but a gigantic Earth. And in one of these craters we live. The crater Sulpicius Gallus M. Probably you won't believe a word I say, but I will prove it to you within the next minute. Watch this. Take a freeze frame of the crater. Darken the image. Now let's make a 3D map. Watch the differences in height. Next, we take the official Antarctica map. Flip horizontally, rotate a bit, skew it a bit, put it on top of the 3D map. Well, For me, that's a match. But for you unbelievers, let's watch it in detail. Now, a lot of people won't believe this. But what are the chances that I take a random crater of the moon, make a 3D map of it that matches the map of Antarctica perfectly? The chances are zero. Except when you know what you are doing. If you want to know how I got there, I explained it in my previous videos. To be honest, this insight was a complete surprise for me too, because I thought there was no Antarctica. So both theories are true. You have the ice wall of the flat Earth, within the middle the North Pole, and you have the continent Antarctica. Only it is much bigger and it is not surrounded by water. There is probably no South Pole, as we are not on a little ball. Now I will look for the passage to get out of the crater. Someone who saw my video gave a reply saying that the symbol of Earth in the series Stargate was this. You can see the resemblance with Sulpicius Gallus M. Now I will give you some information about the Pillars of Hercules, because I think that is the clue to get out of the crater. For this I will take Wikipedia. According to Plato's account, the lost realm of Atlantis was situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, in effect placing it in the realm of the unknown. Renaissance tradition says the pillars bore the warning nec plus ultra, also non plus ultra, nothing further beyond, serving as a warning to sailors and navigators to go no further. So when the psychopaths tell you to go no further, you can be damn sure there is something beyond. So where are the Pillars of Hercules? So they tell us the Pillars of Hercules are situated in Spain and Morocco. Let's investigate that. Well, they seem to have the right angle in Morocco. In Spain, some people know it too. The Pillars of Hercules remind me of the favorite subject of the Freemasons, the Pillars of Jachin and Boaz. So, you destroy the pillars, the symbolic destruction of the gate. Sadly enough for them, that was exactly the event that got me searching for the truth. Later on, the Spanish changed their symbols into plus ultra. There is more. Columbus discovered the New World. I think the New World was not about the Americas. It wouldn't surprise me that Columbus discovered the passage out of the crater. Now, why am I saying this? Because when you look on the Antarctica map, you have a place called the Hercules Inlet. When you put that on the new map I made, you see the gateway of the two pillars. When you flip the map, you can clearly see the two pillars and the gateway. Another way to get out would simply be walking all the way out of Antarctica into the New World. Maybe the New World Order is not the New World Order, but the New World Order, the small elite that knows there is a new world beyond. The same people that made the Antarctica map. They know. So, in World War II, with the improvements of air flight, the Americans must have seen the bigger Antarctica. Or the Germans, British, Russians, but nobody says a word. Why? That's because there are no Germans, British or American. They are all servants of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire that slowly morphed into the Holy Roman Empire and the Vatican. Top of the military are the Templars. The Templars' cross is everywhere. In England, Germany, the Vatican, Russia, and so on. All the elites are members of the Templars. And in the meanwhile, during World War II, they are hiding behind their neutrality in their hiding place Switzerland, headquarters of the Templars, with their Templar treasure and looting the whole of Europe with their favorite criminals, the Nazis. After the war, the German people are slaughtered, and the real criminals flee to the US and the USSR, where they work on their new global deception, the fake space program. To the US, they sent one of their top criminals, Werner von Braun. There, he creates NASA, responsible for the fake solar system and the fake moon landings. Now I will end with this image. The eagle of the Roman Empire lands on biosphere Earth, crater on the bigger Earth, and covers it with the acacia, symbol of the Freemasons. In the back, you see the little ball Earth, the fake replacement of the real Earth. You also see the number 11, the two pillars. They are manipulating our subconscious. There is a word for this whole story, and sooner or later, these people will get what they deserve. Thanks for watching. In this video, I will present you the holy grail of the Flat Earth movement. And no, it's not the United Nations map. One of the viewers of my videos was intrigued by the plus ultra explanation in my previous video. He mentioned the existence of a secret society called the Plus Ultra Society. So I examined this society with some surprising results. Plus Ultra is a secret society comprised of the greatest minds throughout history that created Tomorrowland. Their motto is Cras est noster, which means tomorrow is ours in Latin. It was founded in 1889 by Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Jules Verne and Gustave Eiffel. It went on to include other members such as Mark Twain, Ray Bradbury and Walt Disney. So, They created Tomorrowland. That reminded me of the music festival in Belgium. More about that later. So I looked at some photos of that society, and the first photo that struck me was this photo. Ray Bradbury, in the middle, is working with some colleagues on a map. Look at the form of the circle. It reminded me immediately of Sulpicius Gallus M. Look closely at the form of the water. Now, let's look again at the structure of the landscape. Let's fill it with water and put the buildings on. This photo was taken in the 50s. We're now 60 years later. I think we are looking at the plans of the new world. They are colonizing the bigger Earth. Now you know why every country on the planet is in financial debt. They are using our money to build a world of their own. So Ray Bradbury, science fiction author, was a good friend of Walt Disney. So when I had seen this photo, I thought, let's examine Disneyland from the air, and bingo! I immediately saw Sulpicius Gallus M. Let's put the Antarctica map on it. On the Japanese Disneyland, I was looking for the Tomorrowland festival in Belgium Boom, and I saw the same map. Same map in Tomorrowland, Brazil. So I think the same people are behind this Tomorrowland festival and Disneyland. I always found it very strange how some nobodies from Belgium suddenly make this gigantic festival and export this abroad. That's very strange. Who is paying all this? This festival is clearly created to promote chemical drugs and bring people in a state of hypnosis, just like Disneyland.
Friends from over 75 countries traveled to Belgium. Thank you for being part of this amazing fairy tale. You are by far the best crowd in the universe.
Let's return to the map of Disneyland America. What immediately struck me was the Tom Sawyer Island, but sadly enough, it only shows North and South America. Now, first, let's look at some Disney attractions. Here you have the Matterhorn, and here a submarine base. That reminded me of some stories of Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and the story of Captain Nemo and his submarine, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It also reminded me of the German Nazi submarine base on Antarctica. Let's compare the Antarctica map with the Disney map. Looks identical. True after all? Then there must be a passage around to enter the base. So Disney is showing us the real Earth map. So let's go back to the Tom Sawyer Island. I searched and found the first map of Tom Sawyer Island. And it looked kind of strange, and I thought, this is a fantasy map. But last week I looked again, and suddenly I saw a different map. Let's look in detail. So, the whole world map is shown here, but why are the Americas on their head? Why is everything connected to each other? Australia fitted on the tree. What a coincidence, but what is the centerpiece? I don't get it. Well, finally I thought, let's look for this form on Sulpicius. And whoa, it fits. So you take our existing world map, you cut off the Americas, flip it horizontally and put it on its head under Asia. But you have to skew because you have to hold account with perspective. That is why Africa looks so small. It is probably the lowest point of our biosphere. But what is this centerpiece? The only thing I can think of is that this part of Earth has been flooded, and we are looking at the 50 million year old map. For the moment, I have no other explanation. The most similar map I could find was this one of Martin Waldseemüller, 1507. So now I would like to thank Uncle Walt for this map. Oops, am I seeing someone else here? This is a building of the Disney Studios. Those dwarves, that's us. We are holding up the pyramid. We are fed of the junk food, poisonous water, chemtrails, polluted air. But the day we step aside, their pyramid will collapse. Here is a little teaser for my next video about the real control masters. Thanks for watching. Let's take a look at the behavior of the Romans. Is there a mammal that is acting in the same way? Have you ever seen one wolf leading thousands of wolves and attacking some territory? Or a king rat? A gigantic bear leading his troops into enemy territory? I don't think so. The only place I see this kind of behavior is in the insect world. The black ants attacking the red ants, slaying their enemy, looting their nests, bringing back the spoils of war to their queen, exterminating without mercy their enemies. So I thought, let's think insect and observe humanity and history. The insect armies of Rome. The Greek insects. Their helmets even remind me of the Greys. The head of a praying mantis, an insect that will frequently pop up in my investigation. A horned one, a winged one, in the Middle Ages they dress like ants and beetles. Okay, you might say, they might have been inspired by insects to design their harnesses. But when you look at Egypt, it starts getting creepier. I was thinking insect and suddenly I started seeing cocoons. The crozier, a larva in a cocoon, an underground nest, the mummy wrapped in silk, the Egyptians were making themselves ready to go to the afterlife. But why are they imitating the birth of an insect? On the sarcophagus you see the image of the winged Isis. Everybody sees them as the wings of a bird. I would make them wings of an insect. Isis, Ishtar, Asherah, the queen of the hive. Let's look again at the cone-headed praying mantis. Isis and Madonna on the Super Bowl. Let's take a look at the ceremony. Madonna arriving with her Greek-Roman insect army. Waving palm tree leaves? No, let's make them insect wings. Sitting on the throne like the queen of the hive. Making ritual moves. So, let's take a look again at the Egyptian image of Isis. Let's take a look again at the sun between the horns. What would that mean? The adoration of the sun. To understand this, I will take this video to another level. I will explain why humanity suddenly started behaving like an insect. Let's have a look in nature if there is a case by which we can explain our strange behavior. Let's watch a short video.
Wasps are often characterized as aggressive and an insect to fear. A recent study reinforces this general perception by exposing them as master manipulators. Researchers in Japan learned that when it comes to the task of wasps nurturing their young, they make another insect do it. Spiders appear to be the preferred caretakers, and to get them to perform the task in a satisfactory fashion, wasps employ the power of mind control. When it's time for a wasp to release its eggs, it will do so on an arachnid's back. In addition to being saddled with the responsibility of hatching the larvae, the spider is injected with a substance that makes it do the wasp's bidding. That involves building the offspring a comfortable home. The preferred nursery is what's called a resting web, the sort of denizen a spider spins for itself when it's molting and doesn't want to be bothered by incoming food. Further, when the newborns get hungry, it uses the host as a nutrition source, feeding on it until it's sucked it dry.
So, the spider normally makes this kind of web. Now it's making this kind of web. The wasp's consciousness has taken over the consciousness of the spider, and now it is using the body of the spider to make a web of its own. Let's take a look at our behavior. We are hunter-gatherers and live in the forest. That provides us of everything we need. Then something happens. Suddenly, like the spider, we start destroying our habitat and start creating a completely new environment. We start living in cells. We start making strange buildings, wiring the whole planet, the World Wide Web, creating the weirdest machines. How is this possible? Let's go back to the bigger Earth in the plasma ball. Think of it as a cell, a nucleolus and a membrane, floating in an unknown substance. In the core of the planet is a black substance, an intelligent liquid, responsible for the script of the planet. Maybe you came across the story of black goo, but I will call it, in comparison with the computer, the BIOS code, the consciousness of our Earth. How does an acorn know it has to become a tree? How does a child know at birth it has to breathe? Think of it as a Wi-Fi connection with the BIOS code of the planet. So, at a certain moment, a cell decides to parasite on the cell of our Earth. It attaches to our cell. Then it drills a hole through the membrane. That would make of our Sun the connection point between the two cells. Now the invasive cell will try to take over the consciousness of the attacked cell. How will it do that? Well, it will shoot some BIOS code of its own onto Earth. Now we have a big problem, because now we have two conflicting codes, and the invasive code will try to destroy the local one. Now let's go back to the beginning of the Egyptian culture. The most important temple in Heliopolis was the Mansion of the Benben, also known as the Mansion of the Phoenix. In the middle of the temple, in an open courtyard, stood an obelisk, on top of which sat the Benben stone. This was a black conical stone that looked like a small pyramid. Throughout the ages, the original Benben was copied in different forms. According to the Egyptians, the stone literally fell from the sky. The Benben stone was seen as the solidified seed of Atum, the stone of creation. It was on this stone that the phoenix or Bennu bird would return every 12,594 years and place its new egg. At that moment, a new era of mankind was started. The Bennu bird came from the Isle of Fire, the mythical place where the gods were born. So, let's go back to this picture of the two cells uniting, the Vesica Pisces. Throughout history, this image was used for the iconography of the female genitals. The cosmic vagina, the Virgin Mary. Why the Virgin? Because there was no sexual act. A piece of itself, the Benben stone, was shot into the atmosphere. Next, the Benben stone was called the seed of Atum and put on an obelisk. Now you have the phallus symbol. Next, you put the phallus symbol in the Vesica Pisces and aim it at the sun. So, we are invaded on planetary level, but sadly enough, we are also invaded in our consciousness. In our mind, there was only one voice, the voice of planet Earth. Everything that happened was in favor of the growth of our planet. Organic life was flourishing. But suddenly, another voice pops up in our head. Suddenly, we have duality, good and bad. An evil eye has woken up inside our head. The only purpose of that voice is to kill all organic life. Suddenly, we think of suicide. Suddenly, we think of killing our neighbor for no reason at all. Now we start destroying all life on our planet. The parasite is mimicking our internal voice and is pretending to be us. That way it is hiding from our awareness. How do we get rid of this parasite? Let me tell you the story of Ramana Maharshi. In the summer of 1896, Ramana went into an altered state of consciousness, which had a profound effect on him. He experienced what he understood to be his own death and later returned to life. So, Ramana experienced his own death. I think he experienced the death of the parasite. From that moment, he was in a state of unselfishness. Ramana advised the method of inquiry into the nature of the self by asking the question, "Who am I?" He wants you to ask the question, "Who am I?" I being the ego. That way, he asks the parasite, "Who are you?" thereby exposing it and making it to leave. Because of universal law, the parasite needs our consent to stay here. Therefore, it has to lie to us all the time. The moment you see it, the parasite is out. Okay, let's look for the parasite. Not here. Not here. Of course, you will not see the parasite, because it is behind the camera, filming. Okay, so there are two observers watching through the camera. The silent one and the one who is constantly talking. As we are born without a language in our head, the observer who is talking must be the parasite. Now, the silent one can observe the noisy one. So we die. Now we got rid of it all, we think. Oops. We got sucked into the tunnel of white light. A winged being is waiting for us. An angel, God, Saint Peter. Funny how all those gods are winged. If I'm correct, this white tunnel is the corridor into the consciousness of the insect cell. The angels are the gatekeepers of the parasite's world, keeping us out. We have to stay in purgatory. No, you are not coming into heaven. You have to go back to earth, because you made some mistakes. You have to reincarnate again. You people are bad. You are sinners. You are destroying your own world. You have to return time and time again. Okay, let's return to the Ben stone and see what Stanley Kubrick has to say about it. Let's return to Egypt for the birth of the Illuminati. Pharaoh Akhenaten decides to get rid of the multiple gods of Egypt and installs the worship of the solar disk, Atum, introducing the first monotheistic religion. The Illuminati are those who are illuminated by the sun. But the priests revolted, and Akhenaten was expelled from Egypt, together with his followers. I think Moses was Akhenaten, and he took the stone with him. Here begins the story of the spreading of the infection. You can follow the trail of bloodshed throughout history. Arriving in Israel, installing the sun cult.
Solomon's temple. We're told about King Solomon's temple. Incidentally, there was no King Solomon. So don't look for King Solomon in history, because there was no King Solomon. That's the word Sol, Om, On. S-O-L is the sun in Latin. In Latin, the word sun is S-O-L, Sol. And in the Hindu priest of the sun, they call the sun Om. Remember the priest of Om? They chant Om. And On is the city of the sun. The Greeks call it Heliopolis. It's called Heliopolis to this day. But the Egyptians, Heliopolis. Heliopolis means the city of the sun. The city of the sun, Heliopolis in Greek, was originally called in the Egyptian On. Look it up in any dictionary.
Arriving in Lebanon, Phoenicians. The Greeks, the Romans. Who was Jesus? Well, I think Jesus was an early Illuminati fighter who saw the danger of the sun cult in Rome. He attacked the banksters, but that might not have been a good idea, because he was betrayed, heavily tortured and crucified. But the Illuminati played a very clever trick. They assimilated him into the sun cult. They invented the story of the resurrection of Christ, like the phoenix. They gave him 12 apostles, like the 12 sun gods of Mount Olympus. They gave him an aura, the sun. They made him a tranny, let him give the sign of Baphomet, welcoming the phoenix. Are you sure you are worshipping the original Jesus? The infection is spreading to Europe. Europeans are colonizing the world. Britain is ruling the waves. The infection in America and Russia.
I'll be back.
Okay, let's recapitulate. A parasitic cell is attaching to our cell. The parasitic cell is shooting some solidified consciousness into our cell. This consciousness is infecting people on our Earth. They are now playing the agenda of the parasite. It is communicating through channeling, and it is pumping its technology into Earth. The parasite is an insect with a hive mind. It is presenting itself in many forms, mainly bird-like, because in this form it is recognizable for organic life forms. When the collective consciousness will collapse, the parasite will take over. Therefore, the invader has to traumatize people. So they will finally give in and accept the arrival of the entity. The Illuminati think when their entity will return, they will be sitting on the right hand of their lord. What a joke! They will be eaten like all the rest of us. We live or die together. For thousands of years now, they are trying to pull in their entity. But it will not work. Because as long as even one person is resisting, they cannot enter. And I can assure you, I am not going to give in. And I hope you don't. So here is a little exercise for your subconscious mind.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Roger, we got a roll for
Tower clear.
Roger, roll. Station. And ignition. On range 70 miles, 43 miles high, velocity more than 300 feet per second.
Capcom, we're go for landing.
Altitude 4200.
Houston, you're a go for landing, over. Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet. You're looking great.
Altitude 1600.
Eagle looking great. We copy you down, Eagle.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this Earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Well,
To start today on an organized and well-supported space program, I believe a practical passenger are immediately clamped on the outside to protect it from meteors. The first workday in space draws to a close. Every 24 hours, the shell of the station is completed. Now comes a delicate task.
The flight crew has completed the final launch vehicle range safety checks. At T-minus 50 seconds, the launch vehicle will be on full internal power. That begins the actual launch sequence. The weather's reported good, scattered clouds at 10,000 feet. All systems are go, all lights are green. We're at T-minus 3 minutes, 6 seconds, mark.
12, 1, 10, 9, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What was it we were really celebrating? 3 men who had done what no man before had done. A technological feat that was believed beyond the realm of possibility. The fulfillment of an age-old dream. Were we celebrating simply because it had been a long time since we'd had anything to celebrate? Or was this something that touched an irrational, unthinking instinct in us all?
Here is the real reason for the fake moon landings. You just proved by putting a man on the moon, 1. The moon is a rock in space, and 2. The Earth is a little blue ball floating in space. Now nobody will ever suspect he is living on a gigantic ball. Now the Phoenix worshippers have a whole new planet for themselves. Mission accomplished. Bigger lies will follow. Everybody starts sending supplies to their bases. When the public demands an explanation for the trillions of dollars spent, the main alibis are 1. The building of the fake space station ISS. 2. The launch of fake satellites. 3. The exploration of the fake space. 'All of these lies are amplified by the mind control machine. So you need people for the bigger Earth. How do you do that? Well, you invent the story of the secret space program. During the war, the Nazis were experimenting with anti-gravitation. After the war, this technology was brought to the United States. By now, the United States have some super advanced spacecraft. And they are building bases on the moon and on Mars. Hey, aren't you interested? Sure, they put you on a high-speed underground train and they tell you you are on a spacecraft flying to Mars. they release you on the bigger Earth, and there you see a different sun and you breathe different air. So now you think you are on Mars. So you think you are on a little red ball flying in space, and the people on Earth think they are flying on a little blue ball in space. Mission accomplished.
Sound good.
Discovery Houston, negative return.
Copy.
Possibility 1. The shuttle lands on the bigger Earth and is used there to transport people and supplies. The pilot is brought back to Earth with some other transport. That would take several days. In the meantime, the astronauts are doing studio work and are playing Little Blue Ball in the solar system. When the pilot has returned, they embark, take off, and land for the public eye.
Landing gear down and locked.
In case someone sees the takeoff, you have several shuttles. It was another one. Possibility 2. The pilot returns to base after drop-off. Lands on a military base. After a few days, they embark, take off, and land for the public eye. I would go for possibility 1. Why wait several days and do studio work? The more studio work you do, the bigger the risk of being caught. Another argument is the Russians are building exactly the same shuttle, the Buran. That could imply there is one technical plan for usage on the bigger Earth. That confirms the idea there is only one global ruling world government.
Velocity 2,900 feet per second, altitude 9 nautical miles, downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
This is not standard. This is not something that is planned, of course.
One of the Apollo missions was closer to home, Apollo 15. The reason was Crater Hadley C, situated in the tape. The tape is the area where you have an equal day and night, similar to our crater. Second reason is the ice on the bottom of the crater, or on top of the reflection Mars. If you want to colonize the bigger Earth, you need water, which they probably found.
After returning to the LEM to load equipment, they moved to a nearby location to set up a science station similar to those left on previous missions.
Lots of Marslanders have been sent to Hadley C. I thought, like a lot of alternative media, all these images were shot in the desert of Utah. But now I think these are real pictures from the area of Hadley C. They are mapping out this area, but they are using the old trick of putting it on a ball and present it to us as Mars. In the beginning, you had the myth of the red planet, but in the meantime, they have changed the color of the images. And by now, you can see the climate and colors are very similar to ours, including the sun. For the moment, you have the mind-controlled Elon Musk taking over. Clearly a figurehead, called after a figure from a book of Werner von Braun, with the looks of James Dean. But I have the impression the MK Ultra programming is not working very good.
Richard, talk about that.
I would never believe that this would ever happen. Yeah, I just think, you know, the humanity landing on the moon, man, that was maybe the greatest thing ever. Maybe the greatest thing ever.
Would you get in it and take a ride?
Yeah, I'd be happy to go in the vehicle. I think it's good design. A lot of crazy amount of hard work from a lot of smart people at SpaceX.
Expand on that, thanks.
Well, I think like the obvious thing would be, you know, if there are sort of private citizens that want to go to the space station, as it's happened before. They've always gone on the Soyuz before. You know.
He is pumping the media full with hoaxes. He is supported by an army of mind-controlled children.
Look at that!
I think the purpose of the vertical rockets is to land on a surface, refuel, and take off again. That way you can put people on the ground safely and maybe return. Under the pretext, of course, of sending supplies to the ISS. Finally, I hope they haven't encountered life yet on the bigger Earth, because humanity will be represented by psychopaths, and you know what will happen to them.
How do you warm Mars up? You know, it's a long way away from the sun.
There's the fast way and the slow way.
Okay. Give me the fast way.
The fast way is drop thermonuclear weapons over the poles.
You're a supervillain. That's what a supervillain does.
Yeah.
Today I will present you an old Ice Age map. Not a map I found on the attic or in an old library. No, it's a map that has been here for thousands of years. The only problem was we don't have the eyes to see it. And our biggest problem is that we are looking for a Columbus map with eyes, because we think that is the real map. So let's explain the Columbus hoax. You take the Columbus map and you create 4 points. Let's make it easy. 2 B's from Brussels to Boston, and 2 C's from California to China. So let's change the New World map into the Old World map. You flip the Americas horizontally and put it under Eurasia. Now you make a circle. You sail from Brussels to Boston and from California to China. This system is surrounded by an ice wall. So now you sail east from Europe to India. But Columbus said, what if we would sail west? Well, a little child would know you would hit the ice wall. But not Columbus. No, because Columbus had some powerful friends. So Columbus started sailing west. And you know what? He discovered a new continent. Was it a new continent? Well, of course it was. If you take the old continent, you flip it horizontally and put it on another place, it's a new continent. If you want to go from Brussels to Boston, that's easy. But if you want to go from California to China, the only way you are getting there is on a ball-shaped world. That's the way you change a circle into a ball. Now we have the new world. From the moment Columbus discovered the Americas, you have rectangular maps, or you have the double ball map. When you see a doubled ball map, that means they have you by the balls. The only real world maps are circular maps. Of course, this all sounds unbelievable, but let me prove it to you with an old map I found. How did I get to this map? I'll give you a short review. 1. The moon is the reflection of Earth. 2. We live in a crater called Sulpicius Gallus M. 3. Antarctica fits perfectly in crater Sulpicius Gallus M. 4. the Americas are positioned in a completely different way. So, now that we have the real world map, it's fairly easy to find an Ice Age map. So, as a lot of European culture has been destroyed by the Catholic parasites, I thought maybe there is some knowledge left in the Muslim culture. So I typed in old Muslim map. Bingo! I bumped into the Ibn al-Wardi map. I hope I pronounced that correctly. There are different versions of it, probably all copies of the original one, but by accident I ended up with this one. Luckily, through the ages, people tried to explain this map and they put some names on it. Wrong. That's because they think Columbus. But if you will compare it with my map, you will see a totally different story, and you will see that this very simple map is a very sophisticated map, and it's very detailed. Okay, let's compare it. Let's take a look at the continents. First, the Eurasia-Africa part. Look at the form. Then you have Africa, Australia, and India. Now let's take a look at the Americas. Notice how the Americas are not an island. And at that moment I realized that this was an Ice Age map. So let's take the Ice Age Columbus map. North America completely frozen, Northern Europe and Asia frozen too, but in Europe you see some reddish color. That could mean that the ice is melting and we are at the end of the Ice Age. If we are talking about the last Ice Age, that would mean this map is from 10,000 BC. So then we take a look at South America. At the west side we have a lot of melting ice. And apparently you can walk from South America straight into Antarctica. Let's take a look at the rest of the map. At the surroundings of the continents. Very similar. Now let's take a look at Antarctica. You see the center point, and from the center point you have a big sea going into the bigger Earth. The only problem of this map is the straight line here. It's called the Nile on a later map. This probably means that this map is a copy of an older Ice Age map, and this line was added to try to fit the Columbus map. So I suspect there must be an older map without this line. After finding this map, I started finding other circular maps, but of European origin. Don't look at the text, but at the shape of the water. Then I bumped into a very special map. It was more like a painting. The shape of the water is similar, but at the top you can clearly see a boat. It is the Ark of Noah on Mount Ararat. In a previous video I stated the Ark stranded outside the crater, but apparently it stranded in the crater. So Mount Ararat is on Antarctica. And then it struck me. Listen to the words. Mount Ararat. Antarctica. Mount Ararat. Antarctica. Now I understand where the word Antarctica is coming from. And slowly it is dawning on me. 10,000 years ago, people knew the shape of the earth. They even mapped it out. This information has been stolen from us, and I know who's to blame. There are stories that we are in the end of times, and this is the last pope. Well, I think they are right. This is the last pope. And we are in the end of times, but not for us. This is the end of the new world. The old world is back.